Earlier this year, Marry Me was released in theaters and apparently got decent reviews. Now, I haven't watched it yet, it's on my list though, but this can only mean one thing. Rom-coms are back. Okay, to be fair, they never really went away. They just got overshadowed by the massive amount of franchise movies. Nobody wants to watch slightly better than Hallmark style movies. Wait, correction. Nobody wants to pay to watch these movies. I don't like or want to pay for these movies either. Thank goodness for streaming services. I know what you're thinking. You gotta pay for streaming services, dummy. Yeah, I know. However, I, like every other young adult, piggyback off of various family members and friends who subscribe to the different services. There's like 1,000 of them now, so don't judge me. Anyway, HBO just released an all-new original rom-com of their own, Moonshot. I'm not usually one to fall victim to peer pressure, but the marketing for this movie was so aggressive, I had to watch it. And I did, like 2 weeks after the fact. Directed by Christopher Winterborough, in what I think is his second full-length film, starring Lana Condor from To All the Boys I Loved Before film series, and Cole Sprouse from Sweet Life of Zack and Cody, 5 Feet Apart, and Riverdale.
I'm weird. I'm a weirdo.
Moonshot is a young adult romantic comedy in space. Google's description of the movie describes it as such. In a future where Mars is terraformed, 2 college students sneak aboard a space shuttle from Earth to Mars in order to be united with their significant others. Sounds interesting, right? It's not. Let's get into it. Like I said before, this film is set in the future, 2049 to be specific. The Earth is basically covered in garbage, so the richest and smartest people are fleeing to a newly terraformed Mars to escape from the smell. We meet our male protagonist, played by Cole Sprouse, Walt, as he's applying for a job with Covey Industries. Leon Covey is the eccentric billionaire who decided to go to Mars in the first place and owns the space travel company and the Mars colony. Anyway, Walt has apparently applied to the Covey Industries program a whopping 36 times and has been denied every time because he's incredibly average. Doesn't stop him from trying a 37th time anyway, because he knows he's meant for adventure and has been dreaming of space travel since he was a wee kiddo.
From that moment on, all I wanted to do was go to the sun.
His college roommate and friend, I don't remember his name or even if he had one, decides to take him out to some party after giving him a touching little speech.
Listen, someday you're gonna meet someone and make something special with them. Like a memory. Or a weird, well, baby thing.
And then having him carry the booze. Top tier friend right there. Top tier. At the party, Walt is just blowing it with the ladies. He's awkward and only wants to talk about Mars and Covey, and it's pretty lame. On his way to the bathroom, he goes into the wrong room like a doofus, and we meet our main female protagonist, Sophie, played by Lana Condor, who is talking with her long-time and long-distance boyfriend, Calvin. And when I say long distance, I mean he's on Mars. Apparently his parents got a job up there, but their contract is only a year. Upon realizing that Calvin is on Mars, Walt decides to invade this stranger's personal space and break her stuff.
I can replace it. Unless it's expensive.
You'll notice that the movie is going for an enemies to lovers vibe here, because, spoiler, these two are end goal if the poster didn't set that up enough for you. So Walt is kicked out, and he decides to walk around the house some more and continue to be awkward with women. This next interaction isn't completely his fault, though, since this chick is clearly wasted.
Okay.
I like her, though. But now we meet Ginny, another student that Walt remembers from his freshman physics class. Since he's changed his major like 10 times, she doesn't recognize him. Ginny admits that she's having a bit of an existential crisis because she's making a big move in the morning, and she's having second thoughts. Walt takes this opportunity to have a "we only have tonight" moment, a la Before Sunrise. If you haven't seen that movie, I highly recommend it. Anyway, Ginny and Walt are talking about this and that and walking around campus when Walt goes on this tangent on how Mars is awesome or something, and Ginny lays this quote on him.
When you look at something from this distance, it's all possibility. then every step you take toward that strips it away until it is what it is.
They go in for a kiss, but then predictably Ginny's alarm goes off, and they part. She tells him to look her up if he's ever on Mars, because that's where she's moving to.
What?
I guess they must have exchanged numbers because she texts him as her space shuttle is launching, initiating what he assumes to be a relationship. Fast forward 1 month, Walt's 37th application wasn't good enough to get accepted, probably because he has no skills, average grades, and would bring nothing of value to the colony. And he's pretty bummed. To top it off, Ginny slowly stopped responding to his texts. Oh no. While Walt's at work complaining to his robot coworker, he spots Sophie being a blubbering mess in public and takes pity on her. They get to talking, and we find out that Sophie's boyfriend, Calvin, will not be coming back to Earth anytime soon like they thought, because he's accepted a job on Mars. This is even more devastating to Sophie, since she basically had their future planned out since they started dating 8 years ago, when they were 14. Walt tries to relate to her by mentioning that his girlfriend is also on Mars for an undetermined amount of time. You know, the girl that's been slowly ghosting him. After mentioning that the only way either of them can see their significant others would be to wait for the application period to open again or have $1 million, Sophie remembers that she's rich, and her only family is on Mars, so she buys a ticket on the last space shuttle that year. Walt is desperate to go to Mars as well, and asks Sophie to help a guy out and buy another ticket. She says no, obviously, and dips. Depressing moment for Walt, once again, before he gets a video message from Ginny. Apparently she was just so busy with a cat that snuck onto the last shuttle, and is now the first cat on Mars. They named the cat Ripley, and I think that's really cute. This cat gives Walt an epiphany, though, as he realizes he could probably sneak onto the ship as well. What could go wrong? The next day at Space Airport, Walt meets up with Sophie in line, much to her annoyance, and convinces her to let him go through security with her to see the launch up close. She only agrees because she thinks that she'll never see him again or something. He talks the whole time, and she shows her quirky side by nervous dancing. Oh, so she's afraid of flying, so isn't this trip, like, a great decision? After seeing her off, Walt makes his way to the escape pods in an overdramatic sneak scene that is not sneaky at all. But whatever, because he makes it to an escape pod and texts Ginny right before our launch that he's headed to Mars. I mean Mars. Back on the shuttle, Sophie's absolutely obliterating this Earth plushie that Walt gave her. But once they're all safely out of Earth's atmosphere or whatever, Sophie heads to her room, only to find Walt trying to force his way into an air vent. She reasonably freaks out because if he gets caught, she can get pegged as an accomplice. She stuffs him into her room and is telling him that he cannot, under any circumstances, leave, when the captain just waltzes in and asks who he is. A reasonable question. And then he lies, says he's Calvin, Sophie's long-term boyfriend. This whole scene with the captain is awkward as hell. Like, she introduces the couple to another actual couple, and then blatantly proclaims that she could marry either couple if they so choose, making everyone uncomfortable. She really just wants a reason for a party, apparently. So, since the captain knows that Walt exists but is going by Calvin, he needs identification. It's a good thing there's a guy on board that can do that, and it's also a good thing that Sophie's freaking rich, enough to bribe him. Side note, this guy is totally getting freaky with his computer. And making toilet wine.
I gave Carla a glass, but she can't hold her liquor. Carla the computer.
You can't hold no liquor.
Sophie gives Walt everything she has on Calvin and his research in order for Walt to impersonate him, including some of the more PG texts between the couple.
I mean the boring ones.
Anyway, I hope you all love this spaceship interior, because this is the setting for the majority of the movie, since the journey is 35 days long. Plenty of time for the bickering couple to fall in love.
When two humans are confined for an extended period, it results in either more humans or fewer humans.
Now I'm gonna jump around a bit because even though this film is literally set in space, it's so goddamn basic. Because the real Calvin is an expert on terraforming, the nerds on the ship are constantly trying to convince the fake Calvin to do a presentation. Sophie, ever quick on her feet, comes up with an amazing lie.
He had a traumatic accident on stage last year.
Did you get an erection?
What?
Yes.
Of course he's roped into presenting anyway, and there's no way out. Walt ends up floundering for a bit before giving a motivational but definitely out of place speech, which inspires one half of the other couple to propose to her girlfriend.
Let's get married.
This also gives the captain the excuse for a party like she wanted. It's a win-win for everyone. Now we're gifted the space equivalent of a homecoming dance scene for no good reason. It's extremely out of place, but whatever, I guess. Sophie's wearing something she DIY'd and everyone's getting drunk off of toilet wine. Sophie, a little too much so.
I feel like a Hot Pocket.
And, you know, I guess the romantic juices are flowing, even though they're both supposedly in relationships. Walt is finally able to convince Sophie to go on a spacewalk with him, and it's kind of romantic in a green screen kind of way. On their way back inside, there's some sexual tension, and then sirens. Turns out there was a breach in the hull from some space debris or something, so everyone has to evacuate to the shuttle that'll take them down to Mars. Walt, with his phony ID, won't be able to go with everyone else, because space TSA, I guess, and finally gets to use his air vent idea. The genius Sophie helps him the whole time because, let's be honest, he would die without her. While everyone's in their seats, Walt is stuck with the luggage, and Sophie decides to bunk with him before they land. There's some romantic tension, bonding, and some close calls before Sophie gets an actual call from her boyfriend, where he shows her the bedroom that his family and him set up for her. She feels extremely bad for ever even thinking about breaking up with him, and instead tells Walt that she can't help him anymore. Frustrated, Walt goes on a tangent and lets it slip that he only knew Ginny one night before she left for Mars. Sophie is livid and storms out. Once they land, Sophie reunites with the real Calvin, and Walt gets caught almost immediately. He's arrested and awaiting trial, I guess, when Ginny arrives. She's not there to spring him, though. Just bring the Mars cat, Ripley, to comfort him. She also introduces her security boyfriend, Edgar, who helped her in to see Walt.
Followed me to Mars after one night. Kind of needed to start dating a security guard.
Through some weird set of circumstances, Walt is let out of his room/prison cell and led to Leon Covey's office. Leon then reveals to Walt that he and the crew knew he was on board the ship the whole time. Walt's actually kind of internet famous back on Earth due to Leon leaking the hilarious security footage of him sneaking aboard. In exchange for using his face, name, and story for marketing purposes, Leon offers Walt a chance to stay on Mars without heavy fines and imprisonment. Of course he accepts it. Back with the lovebirds, Sophie is trying her best to be happy now that she's with the only family she has, but there's trouble in paradise. Calvin has it in his mind that now that she's there, she'll want to stay there, even though it goes against her whole life plan. He even goes ahead and gets her a job offer with his team, even though she hasn't finished her thesis yet. When she doesn't immediately accept the offer, he gets offended. At yet another homecoming-esque party, this time a celebration of sending garbage back to Earth, Walt tells the captain how he's kind of disappointed. He thought he'd feel better, like he'd fit in on Mars, but he feels more or less the same. She gives him some profound advice, and then insults him for like the millionth time in this movie. When he runs into Sophie, he ends up giving her some advice as well, and gives her a little gift, which ends up being the little Earth plushie that she basically killed. He tried his hand at fixing it, And well, he tried. It's still cute though. Calvin's mom and Sophie's pseudo-mom comes in and gives her some true mother wisdom. She basically tells Sophie that this isn't her dream, and that even if she and Calvin are no longer together, she'll always be family. Grade A mom right there. The next day, Walt's in another meeting with Leon, where the billionaire tells him of another adventure they'd like to send him on. This time, he'll be headed to one of Jupiter's moons? He accepts at first, but wants to know why him. Leon is all too happy to tell Walt it's because he's not special. And that's why it's good marketing. If some average Joe can get to Mars and then be the first person on this moon or whatever, it'll be super inspiring to others, blah, 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 and they'll spend money or whatever to make it happen, I guess. Before he heads out on his journey that'll last a few years, Walt asks to call Sophie, only to find out that she is the sole passenger on the return trip back to Earth, along with the garbage. It's here that I thought we'd get another typical airport chase scene, but in space. But I was disappointed. Walt just shows up on the shuttle with Sophie. They talk bunch, she makes a good point that he's chasing yet another girl across the galaxy, and they kiss. And that kiss leads us into yet another CGI shot into the credits. Because I tend to be negative in these reviews, I thought I'd start off with the good things in this movie. At least the good things to me. Number one, being this freaking cat. Every scene they're in, I'm happy. Just look at it. Moving on. I really enjoyed Lana Condor in this. I haven't ever watched any of her other works. Let's put that out there. You could really tell she put her all into it, and her character was honestly my favorite, even when she was being a bitch. I'd say it has to do a bit with the writing favoring her, but I don't really care. She's a gem, and a lot of the other reviews I read seem to agree. The fact that the first man on Mars was a billionaire named Leon nearly made me bust up laughing the first time hearing it. It's so close to a certain other billionaire in real life that I actually misheard his name at first. And Zach Braff is awesome in every scene he's in, even if his total collective screen time is like 7 minutes. Now we can get to the bad things and really dive right into the negativity. Walt. I hate Walt. I'm mostly going to blame it on the writing, but he's not very likable, and man, do they really like to point out how average and dumb he is. Like, every character in this movie says something along the lines of, you're stupid, you're dumb, you're not special, etc. And it's kind of a bummer and annoying. And I don't think Cole's acting was great either, don't hurt me. Speaking of nothing special, besides the setting being in space, there was a total 0% of originality in this movie. Every single scene might as well have been on Earth. And they really didn't even use the space setting that often, besides some establishing shots, the background through windows, and the spacewalk scene. For 75% of this movie, we're staring at the same walls of the spacecraft, and it's so boring. Overall, this film felt more like a Disney Channel original movie with occasional curse words to take advantage of the PG-13 rating. Take out those words, and I wouldn't be surprised to see this on right after Camp Rock or High School Musical 2. Whew. I think my negativity ran out. Or maybe it's that I'm tired of even thinking about this movie. It's really the same shtick that we're used to, but in a different setting. Overall, I'd give it like a 5 or 5.5 out of 10, depending on how sober I am. I think the consensus is about the same on Rotten Tomatoes too. Now keep in mind that this movie is still fairly new, so the scores might fluctuate since I last looked. Honestly, I'd still recommend watching this movie, but only if you or someone you know already has HBO Max. This definitely isn't worth subscribing for. I think that's about it. Any questions, comments, spam messages, feel free to leave them in the comment section below. As always, be nice to me because I'm sensitive. Bye.